Now I'm going to play over the progression kind of in a normal way, just staying in the key of E somewhat. And this is a pretty basic way that most guys would follow this. And it sounds fine, but if you want to develop any originality, the more that you follow the chords, the more you're going to have a choice in what your solo ends up sounding like, you know, because anybody can master a key and play it over chord changes like that, and that's great. But if you follow each chord, chances are you're not going to follow all the chords the same as another guitarist. You know, you're going to have your own little quirks, and you know, the more you follow chords, the more those quirks are going to stand out, and that's what your playing and originality is made out of. The way you do the things you do. Great song title. But here's the progression. Here's what I would do in the same situation. Now, sometimes when I'm arpeggiating the chords, you might be noticing that I'm not arpeggiating the exact name of the chord that's going on, or I might, you know, break it up some way. A relative chord is sometimes nicer part of it, like say for the key of E, a relative chord would be D flat minor, you know, so if the E is playing, I could play a D flat minor sort of chord, you know. Okay, so that gives it a different sound than just a straight. Doing the relative chord, which is. So that means all you have to do is make it minor and move it a step and a half backwards, and there you have two chords that are interchangeable. So you should say, wow, I'm going to do this with all the chords that I know. And let's say D, for example. Move it a step and a half back. You have B minor there. So let's see, over a D chord, I'm going to play B minor and give you the feel of that. Kind of gives a real pleasant sound to it. It's a little bit different, and if you break into it for just a second out of something normal, it's going to really stand up and give you some attention. The more knowledge that you have, the more control you're going to have, therefore the more aggressive you can play, and you can play the notes like you mean it. And it always comes across when a guitar player means what notes he plays, because he really digs in, and you can really tell that he feels it and he knows what's happening. And so you really want to try to learn as much as you can about the notes that you're choosing, and then you're going to just feel a lot better about which notes you do choose, because you're going to mean it and you're going to play it like you mean it. It's just going to come out all that much better. And I'm going to use distortion to play, you know, real aggressive stuff, you know, and usually you want to have distortion when you're playing aggressively, so that's what I'm going to do, and you're going to check it out. All the concepts that I talk about, you know, they're going to come through, and you're going to realize that everything that I've been talking about with clean tone and all that, it's all the same. It's all melody. Melody is all you're doing. All you're doing is making music. And you can play it really aggressive. You can play it quietly. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you're aware of the notes that you choose. a lot of guys get caught up with the fact that they think they got to learn these certain scales and be able to play them correctly, and these certain scales work only in particular situations and this and that. And I never did that, and I don't really suggest that it's a great way to do things, because that's just going to limit you. The way I kind of developed my own quote-unquote scales is I kind of made them up, and you can make them up yourself. The way I came up with this one scale, which it's got some name, you know, harmonic minor or something like that. I just heard a chord and I played notes. So I came up with something like this, over like an A chord. I kind of just took one note at a time and said, wow, this note sounds cool here. I tried it like this. No, I didn't like the way that sounded. I keep, you know, eliminating notes until I got it into a form that I liked. Okay, building on these patterns that you're going to be practicing, you can use them, you know, in your scale positions that you've made up, or you can use them in any kind of positions and cram them together in a way that's going to make you sound like you're playing a long flowing run, when actually you know that this long flowing run is like a combination of a bunch of patterns stuck together. And if the patterns aren't exactly the same, then it's going to sound a little bit more interesting and more flowing. If it's all the same, it's going to sound like, it's going to sound really obvious to the listener what you're doing. Like if you say, say you do a straight triplet run, like, and you can like break it up in a way where you don't have to do just one of each. You can do one and one, two of the other, three of one, this and that, and you can make it to get from one place to the other. So that's a little bit more interesting, and that's kind of how long runs are. I mean, whether they're consciously thought up or not, the long runs are made up of little patterns, which each one should be practiced separately, so you're in more of control. That's so important, control. Get control of the notes that you play, because that's the only thing you have control over. You know, you can get your technique together, but then you got to have control over your note choice. That's what's going to make you sound different than someone else, because you can control yourself from sounding like someone else. You got to have control. The key word here is control.